You're listening to Grounded, the podcast that brings you real conversations with leaders across the food service and hospitality industry. From supply chain strategy and brand innovation to company culture and leadership, we go beyond the surface to tell the stories happening behind the scenes of today's most influential brands. I'm your host, Lauren Mitchell, and each episode is driven by my passion for spotlighting the incredible people who bring hospitality to life and the journeys that shape our industry. Grounded is proudly powered by Buyer's Edge Platform, your partner for data-driven procurement and food service success. Thanks for being here. Let's get grounded. I'm so excited to introduce a guest who brings both sharp food service insight and an engaging, down-to-earth presence to the conversation. He's built a reputation on helping operators truly understand the moving parts behind their food costs, especially when it comes to pricing, distribution, and contracts. What sets him apart isn't just his technical knowledge. It's how he delivers it. Practical, energetic, and very real. He has a gift for taking topics that can feel dense or overly technical and making them very clear. So I am super excited to introduce him. I work with him every day at the company. It's rare for me to bring a guest on from our organization, but again, I feel this is valuable for those that are working in purchasing, who are new to a purchasing role, or perhaps just want to understand more about how things work with food service and specifically the pricing behind the items that you are buying. Without further ado, Dustin White, welcome to the show.
Wow, that was quite the introduction. Thank you, Lauren.
I'm so excited to have this chat. You're just a gem, a true crowd favorite here at the Buyer's Edge platform, and I'm jazzed. Let's jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it. I can't wait.
Okay. So when we talk about produce, when we talk about distribution, I want to just break it down to something very simple, a case of lettuce. A restaurant sees it on their order guide, they order it. Can you take us through the whole path from where that box starts all the way to their back door and maybe relate it to the different cost areas that go into that case of lettuce?
Yeah, great question. So it's all going to start in the field, right? And this is going to make sense to anybody listening. A grower is going to need to plant that lettuce seed. It's going to need to grow either in Salinas or Yuma, depending on the seasonality. And then once it's come to maturity, they're going to harvest it. They're going to take it and bring it to their consolidation. They're going to pack it into a box, a 24-count case of iceberg lettuce. The distributor is then going to need to buy that product and transport it to their distribution facility. They're going to need to slot it in their warehouse. And then ultimately, when the restaurant orders it, they're going to need to put it on a delivery truck. The delivery truck's going to go to them and deliver it to them. So at a high level, that's it. There are a lot more complexities there. There's a bunch of food safety pieces. There's quality assurance that the shipper has, that the distributor has to make sure the restaurant's getting the right product. But at a high level, that's it.
There you go. So he covered a couple things there. You're packing it usually actually in the field. And there's labor obviously involved at the grower shipper level there, the packaging of the product. You're loading it onto what we call an inbound truck, which goes directly to a distributor in some cases or a broadliner in others, gets slotted and then again picked and selected to go on a final mile truck to the restaurant. There's different ways to break down that process. Dustin, would you mind explaining maybe one example that doesn't follow that specific path?
Yeah, so there are certain instances where a client's supply chain requires them to actually bypass a normal distribution model. And instead, if their volume warrants it, if they're getting a truckload of iceberg lettuce, you actually don't need a distributor to deliver to you. You can actually just have the shipper send a product directly to your own facility and then take care of the final mile yourself. That's probably the biggest application. And then from there's any any number of complex ways where one distributor may deliver it into another distributor to deliver to you for the sake of consolidation. Did that kind of hit your question?
It does. It does. I mean, my point with that is there's a lot of different ways to understand how the process works for you. And just to what Dustin said, knowing your volume and really just knowing what the process is that your product is following will help you become better educated to understanding potential opportunities to actually cut down costs, which is, of course, top of mind for so many people this year. So step one is just knowing the process. What are the paths that your product travels through? How many different consolidation stops? Um, why don't you go this way with it, which I think is another important piece. Cost isn't always, top of mind for people, but perhaps it's quality. And if an operator is recognizing quality breakdown in their product, what part of that supply chain would you suggest or recommend that they perhaps further look into to support and enhance the quality?
Ooh, good question. So the produce industry is interesting because there are definitely quality trends and seasonality that can take place. The funny thing, and this is kind of an oxymoron, when quality tends to be really good system wide, the market tends to be really abundant with product and pricing tends to be lower. And then the frustrating thing is when your prices start to go up, that's typically indicative of the market is actually getting tighter, there's less product available, and the quality of the product is actually less good at that point. So the old adage is when prices is low, quality is great, and when price is super high, your quality is garbage in general. So to your question, what can you do, and what are potentially some of the breakdowns that can happen when quality isn't where it's supposed to be? The first thing to understand, it's produce. So there are inevitably going to be times when your case weights are going to be really good and you've got great yields, other times when your yields are not strong, and that's just a reality of produce, the ebbs and flows that you've got to take. Now, if it seems that your quality is worse than just yield and maybe the lettuce is starting to wilt before you want it to, or the product is breaking down in your cooler before is ideal, the first thing to look at, I would say, as an operator, where are you storing it?
Mhm.
As it turns out, there's an ideal place that you could store every single one of your produce items that you're buying. Some are better in the back of the cooler, others are better in the front of the cooler, at the top or on the bottom, and then others still actually shouldn't go in the cooler altogether. Fun fact, tomatoes are actually better stored outside of the cooler in your dry storage. They will break down in 40-degree wet or 40-degree cooler like that. But if you
Yeah.
leave them in a nice, cool, dry place, ideal temperature in like maybe the 60s or so, that's actually the optimal temperature to store tomatoes. So if your tomatoes are breaking down, look at where you're storing them. If they're in the back of the cooler, they're going to break down way faster. And by the way, we don't expect our operators to be experts. That's why we have an entire team that goes out and visits the restaurants to actually guide them and show them where to store them. And then we also give our clients all the right resources to tell them where to store all of the different products that they have. That's the first place to look. I'd say the second place really is you start with the distributor. You go to the distributor and start asking them, hey, are you seeing this across the board? Or am I a one-off? Because if you're a one-off, then maybe somehow the product that you got wasn't slotted properly at the distribution level. Distributors tend to follow what's called FIFO, first in, first out. So they try to keep their rotation fresh that way. But if somehow your product was missed in the rotation flow, then there's a chance that you got a case of lettuce that was maybe a couple days older than what they actually intended to send you. And then from there, there are a number of breakdowns that could happen at the freight level if something happened with the temperatures on the truck. And then once again, potentially in the field, just depending on what Mother Nature decided to give us in any given time.
Amazing. So a couple different things there that I want to unpack. One, you talked about, I'm going to call it cooler geography, keeping the
Ooh,
tomatoes
I like
outside of
that.
Keeping the tomatoes outside with the potatoes. These are important things for real. We see a lot of lettuce stored right near the door that's being constantly swung open and
Hmm.
closed. You got some warmer air blowing in right there. We like to see the lettuce way in the back. But what you mentioned I thought was really important, which is we don't expect the team in your restaurants to be experts at every commodity that they're handling. And produce is very fragile. So our team does educate them, but really just provides a check and balance process for our operators nationally to just spot check, and they actually temperature check all the
Hmm.
products that are in the cooler and then provide you reporting on that, but train right there on the spot too in terms of suggestions and recommendations on placement. So that's one thing. I love that. Another place that the operator can look at is at the distributor warehouse level with just getting really surgical with the pack date. So how long is the product that you're getting in your back door? How long has that been in transit, let's say, between the
Hmm.
inbound truck and at the distributor? Because you'll see a sticker that actually says pack date right there on the box. So there's some questions there, but what if an operator says, okay, great. I've had conversations with my distributor, but it feels like it happens still a lot. Or I've trained my team, and yet we still have poor quality. Are there any levers that they can pull overall in their supply chain to expedite the path that their product is traveling? Maybe it's a high volume item and they're still turning it a lot. Um, Anything come to mind that they can do to actually shrink that process a little bit and perhaps get product in sooner?
Yeah, great question. So I love that you said the word volume, because a lot of it will boil down to volume is what drives logistical capabilities. So
Mhm.
what I see often is there may be a operator or a client that says, I want this label product, um, without actually understanding when they require a specific label. Um, if that distributor doesn't already bring that in, they actually have to stop an extra truck to get that product, and
Good
then they've
point.
got to bring it in and put it into their overall rotation. So we'll use an example. If I say I want Andy Boy lettuce, but the distributor prefers to buy from Church Brothers, they're going to have pallets and pallets and pallets of Church Brothers product, and then potentially only a pallet of Andy Boy lettuce that's intended to go just to you.
Mm.
That inevitably will throw off the rotation and could potentially cause you to get less fresh product, where even though you prefer Andy Boy, maybe consider asking the distributor, hey, is there another label that I should be considering here? Have you had more success with this product instead of that product? And oftentimes what the distributor may come back with and say, hey, you know what, you're buying this, and I understand you want this, and I've been trying to send you this, but what if we just try sending you this alternate label instead? And what you might find is, even though the label may not be what you want, the quality of the product could be just as good, if not better, because it actually, what I like to say is, we're leveraging the distributor's supply chain in those instances, which is a core foundation of how we like to manage a lot of our clients' pricing, and a lot of our clients' product that they're buying. The
That's an excellent point there. We're going to call it proprietary or maybe just selected labels can impact slower turn rates. I love that. And instead,
Mhm.
leaning more towards or just asking the question to the distributor about some more primary stock labels that perhaps can promote quicker turns.
Yeah, great point. And secondly, um, sometimes uh, the issue isn't necessarily with the product or the label. It could actually just be with the distribution that you're working with.
Yeah.
There's a reason why in the country, aside from broadliners, which are wonderful organizations and serve a very valuable need, and sometimes it makes sense for produce to go through them. There's a reason why in every major market in the country, there are at least one, if not two, three, four, five, six produce distributors who specialize in produce. Because sometimes what you need is a higher touch of produce to ensure that you are getting the right quality product. You can't treat produce the same way that you treat napkins.
It's true. It's true. You can you Whew, we see that all the time. I mean, you have your tomatoes and your lettuce rolled off the same truck with your bleach and ketchups. It's, there's an art to having a produce distributor handling and distributing your product.
Yeah.
Um, Another item that I think is worth mentioning is data and reporting as it
Uh,
pertains to understanding more about quality breakdown. Can you make that connection? Again, someone has the question, I'm seeing quality breakdown at the restaurant level. I want to understand more about the different levers I can pull. Sometimes we ask this question, what kind of reporting do you have at the restaurant level? And they say, well, we really don't have any. How can that help? What would you say?
I'd say you should hire us. No, it's true. So that's one of the benefits of getting to work with us is we can standardize. And by the way, we're not the only company that can do this. I know there are third-party independent companies that enable you to do this, and but I like to think we do it the best, right? We enable you to standardize the data that you have across your entire ecosystem into one place. So as a corporate user, you can log in and you can actually run. You can see for all of your locations across the country all of the customer service tickets that are being submitted,
Mhm.
and help spot trends that way. Um, I, and then once this is just another plug for our PSS team who does the QA. When they visit you, actually get a report that actually shows you the quality of product that you're getting versus the national average. So if you consistently see week after week after week that in all of your different markets your product tends to be lower on a specific commodity than others, then that would point you in the right direction and just starting to ask the question, hey, my iceberg doesn't seem to be as good as what I would like. How do we fix that? And then that's the other piece for why I feel like we're so valuable. We can start pulling the levers on your behalf and be an extension of your supply chain to ensure that your product is actually where you need it to be.
Sure. I'm gonna ask kind of an on-the-spot question. I usually wait to the end to bring in AI and data, but on the topic of reporting and
Mm.
recording, you said just that. For someone who's trying to manage a national program for a specific brand, location level reporting can seem daunting. What is something that you imagine or hope or expect that AI is going to support in terms of kind of bringing together or aggregating all the information that can help brands become better equipped with their data as far as just case in, case out, and or dates and things like that that can ultimately support their quality?
Oh, great question. So to me, the biggest value that um, has come already and potentially and likely will come even more is the reality that as good as any analyst is at being able to take a big data set and shrink it down into something actionable, I promise you that a computer can do it faster and better and more efficient. So one of the things that I'm looking forward to, not even just with quality, but with pricing and being able to identify pricing anomalies and outliers,
Mhm.
um, is when we're managing millions and millions and millions of rows of data every single week. um, I like to picture it. You can plug in AI into that data set and start asking it to look at specific patterns. So and this is all hypothetical today, but I believe there's a world very soon where AI is plugged into that data set and you say, hey, so I need you to take a look at iceberg lettuce system wide. Okay, it shrinks it down. Okay, what do you want me to do with this? Okay, so I want you to take a look at all of the quality report or all of the quality complaints for iceberg lettuce over the last 4 weeks. Okay, great, got that. Okay, what percentage of the total usage was affected by some kind of quality report? And it gives you a percentage, 5%. Okay, how did that compare to the same data set last month? Last month was only 2%. What about the month before that? 2%. Okay, so that's a really interesting trend, Mr. AI. Can you look at this for these 15 commodities across the board And yes, absolutely. Here you go. Okay, now what I want you to do is become an agent for me that can look at this on a monthly basis. And I want you to look at the top 80% commodities that our clients are purchasing. And I want you to flag any outlier when it seems to increase by more than whatever threshold you want, 100%, 150% from the average of the previous 3 months. That's gonna happen inevitably. Like if not within the next 3 to 6 months even. I know that we've invested heavily in our AI technology to be able to get something exactly like that.
Do you guys see why I brought him on? This is what I'm talking about. No, first of all, thank you for modeling what one goes through in the back and forth process with their AI bot. If they were in a heavy pricing related position, I think what you did just there was fabulous. But yeah, so that is what we do. We first of all, we have access to a ton of different data pricing nationally with every different kind of distribution center. So it is so powerful to have that benchmarking system on your side. But I want to take a step back because we've brought up pricing, and that alone is a pretty complex category for produce. We've covered quality quite densely here, but pricing, there are some folks that may not even understand that there are contracts available with their items, or that even within a contract, there's different types of contracts. So if you don't mind, can you explain the difference between a fixed price contract and a fixed with trigger contract?
Oh man, so this is getting into probably one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm going to answer your question point blank, and then I may use a few more words on top of that if that's okay with you.
Love it.
Okay, great. So what I found is oftentimes an operator or a client, they hear the word contract and they believe that a contract means, okay, so my price is set and doesn't change. And we do have, and there are certain commodities and contracts that function that way. We'll use a very good example, pineapples. Your pineapple pricing is typically going to stay the same week in and week out, month in and month out throughout the entire year because our contract is a fixed no trigger contract with all the different suppliers we work with. Same thing with bananas, same thing with herbs, same thing with potentially
Mushroom.
some other commodities. Yeah, mushrooms. So that's definitely a piece, but other commodities have what's called a trigger within the contract parameters. So you might ask, why have a trigger in place? What is a trigger? Well, a trigger very simply is when the market starts to get escalated. And this is kind of a fun thing. The USDA posts all of the market pricing for every single whole commodity out there on a daily basis. As it turns out, the produce markets and the different commodities is really not too different from the stock market. There's a market price, and the market price can move up and down, and it's going to be driven largely by supply and demand, and by availability at the field and grower level. So a trigger says when the market price gets to a certain point, the contract price will also escalate with that in tow. And the most common escalation policy is dollar for dollar. Market goes up $3, your contract goes up $3. And then usually what happens is there's also a corresponding cap on the contract that says once the contract price escalates to a certain point, say it's $25 FOB, then it will cap there and not go any higher than that. So that's how it works. I think the question is why? Why have this in the first place? The reality is produce is very volatile from a pricing perspective. In any given week, you may see the avocado market jump by $20 from the previous week. And the same thing can happen. I've seen it happen with lettuce, with green onions, with parsley, with cilantro, with tomatoes, with apples. Like at any given commodity in any given week may jump drastically or may fall off drastically because produce. And that's just the answer, right? Because produce. So, and what I like to tell our clients is, if you really wanted, we could secure a fixed no trigger contract on this commodity that is really important to you. But understand, just because we want this doesn't mean that the shippers out of nowhere are just going to be able to protect that commodity from all of the volatility. And with that implicit volatility, they're going to need to increase the price to make sure that they're covered, because they don't know what's going to happen over the next 3 months
Right.
or 6 months or a year. So if you want a fixed price on avocados, great, yes, but there is a very strong chance that you may end up paying significantly more than what the price would have been if you followed the normal contract parameters, which are going to be much less, but will also enable the shipper to account for the volatility. So really what we're doing is we're being good partners to the shippers by saying, hey, you're giving us this contract price, but we want to make sure that you've got a little bit of protection if the markets do get escalated. But here's the cool thing. Even when the markets are escalated and the contract pricing goes up, you're guaranteed to get protection against the market price. So in the example of a fix with trigger, if the trigger is $8 higher, when that trigger starts to hit, you're saving $8 against the market, even when the markets are escalated. Now, that the pricing piece is important, but the second piece that is really cool is when you are covered under a contract and when a distributor is buying on contract and selling to you, you actually get preferential treatment with fill rates, which realistically, a price is only as good as the product that you're able to get.
Right.
So if I say I can get you iceberg lettuce at $22 and you try to buy it and then I don't sell you iceberg lettuce because I don't have any, then it's actually not worth anything. So that's the second piece. Not only do you get protection against the markets when they're volatile, but you're also more likely to get the product that you need and not be shorted or prorated or filled in with an alternate product that you don't actually want. So that's I would say that those are the two primary reasons for why we have escalation policies in place, and then also just a little plug for why contracts are so valuable. And you know this, Lauren, we target contracting 85 to 90% of our client spend on average for that reason, because we want to be able to provide consistency in pricing, protection against the markets, and also enable them to get the product that they need.
Fabulous. I mean, there's when you take an escalated market, by the way, that's almost one of my favorite times to talk to potential new clients, because you can look at their pricing and compare it to our escalated on contract price, and there's still a $20 to $30 spread if it's a celery or a lettuce. So again, markets are escalated, our contracts are triggered, but there's a cap. So there's a max that it could go up to. And all the while, yours is still escalating $5 and $10 per week, depending on the 8 to 10 week dip the market's in, or peak, whichever way you want to look at it. So there's insurance in the cap. There's also insurance in fill rate. So when we say those magic words, growers are holding to averages. Every director of supply chain, chief supply chain officer says, thank you. This is why I've been on a program year round. I don't have to stay up at night right now. Produce Alliance has it. So yeah, love that. Thank you so much for breaking that down. And I think we're starting to put together some of, what our goal of this conversation was, which we started. What are the different impacts to price? And that's really understanding the flow through. So it could happen at the field level with the weather. It can happen in the freight market with the trucking and the inbounds into your distributor. And then just overall supply when markets hit.
So can I jump in here? I know this is probably not even a part of the script or anything that you want to touch on, but I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't take the conversation in this direction.
Yeah.
And the reality is the most important thing that you as the operator, as the client, can have at your disposal is visibility and transparency to your pricing. And what I mean by that is that the pricing may go up on a given commodity, but the question that you need to ask is why. There should always be a reason for why. Now, I can say with a high degree of confidence, any client that we talk to Well, okay, let's pull this reporting that we send you every single week, and you can actually see the contract FOB is here. The freight rate is here, the distributor's markup is here, the management fee is here. This is why the pricing comes into place. And then, okay, well, that contract FOB is really high. Is that legit? Yeah, here are the contract parameters that we have. We'll show you. This is our contract FOB, this is our trigger, this is our cap, this is where the market is at. And you can actually math out and see, look, the market is here, it triggered here, it's up this much. So even though you're paying $37 for iceberg lettuce right now, it all checks out with exactly what we told you we were going to do, which is protect you against the market and give you visibility to the pricing. I find it incredible, and especially in today's day and age, any client who says, I want to see where my pricing is coming from, if the answer is anything but yes, here you go, with a
Yeah.
complete breakout exactly like I just described with FOB freight markup, and then supporting data behind that, and start poking into the different holes as to why things are the way that they are, they should start really questioning just at a high level how their supply chain is being managed and how they can get more visibility to their pricing. And I think we could have an entire segment just on that fast alone, but at a high level, I just want to push and encourage anybody and everybody to push for transparency and visibility into the pricing behind what they're getting. That's going to be the first step to ensuring that they're actually getting the right prices.
Yeah. Know the line of reasoning behind your pricing. Absolutely. How about why don't we end here, Dustin? For someone new to food service or produce buying in particular, what is one misconception about pricing or perhaps contracts that you'd love to clear up today?
Man, that is a great question. A common misconception about pricing and produce contracts that I say to anybody who is potentially newer to produce buying or produce supply chain in general. Um, I don't know if this is the most common misconception, but this does get back to what we were saying. You can't expect the price of produce to be consistent the same way that you would expect and I'm not a protein expert, but I understand the protein market might be more consistent, or aside from protein, a lot of other commodities that you buy, your oils, your French fries, your frozen goods, you can typically get a fixed price set across the board. Soda is a good example. Like you're never going to pay a different price for soda. It's always going to be the same week in and week out. You can't have that expectation for all of your produce commodities across the board. That would probably be potentially not the biggest misconception, but one of the bigger misconceptions is having that expectation that your pricing isn't going to change. It's not about not changing, but it's about change management and what we can do to mitigate that and control that, while also acknowledging that produce, by and large, inevitably will change from one week to the next.
Yeah. I thought you were going to take that in a different direction. I expected you to say, why go on a managed program? Why buy contracts when I can get it cheaper from the market down the street or at the
Ooh.
import dock?
Now I'm kicking myself. Why didn't I say that? Can I just start over? No, I'm kidding. I liked my
Oh,
answer. I
yeah.
liked my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen that as well. Um, a client's got a great relationship with their distributor. They're curious about working with Produce Alliance, or they're curious about working with Fresh Concepts. We show them all the value. They come to the distributor and say, "Hey, they're saying they can save me 10% on my produce. How is that possible?" And that's with them having a management fee. How is that possible? Oftentimes the distributor will just say, "Oh, you don't need them. Let's cut them out, and I'm going to take care of you." Which I obviously, and it's no knock to them. I'd probably do the same thing if I were in their shoes. But um, the reason that you want to go under a managed program in general is because we're the ones who are leveraging over $2 billion in buying power to secure the industry's most competitive contracts with the industry's best grower shippers, working with the industry's best distributors to ensure that you are getting the produce program that you deserve. There's a lot that goes into it, from the pricing transparency to the quality support, to the food safety support, to the distribution support. We've recently rolled out with metrics at the distributor level to be able to show you key KPIs that each distributor has and how they compare to other distributors in the market and across the country. Yeah, I don't even know if I fully answered that question. I liked your answer better than mine, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we see it all the time. People tend to hop on a managed program or hope or wish they were on a contract during tough, tight markets, right? Because again, not only price is up, but supply is tight. And at that point, you'd rather pay twice as much for your product and at least have product to serve in your restaurants than no
Mm,
product at all, which is the worst problem here.
yeah.
We could talk obviously all day about this topic. I knew you would be great, and I didn't expect you to be exceptional, which you were today. I have a feeling people are going to want to say, how do I reach out to this Dustin White? I've got a couple questions. Do you mind? How can people get a hold of you? Where can they connect with you if they perhaps have a question or just want to learn more about their program pricing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a LinkedIn profile. You can find me there, Dustin White, Buyer's Edge Platform, Fresh Division. My email is dustin.white@freshalliance.com. My phone number is 951-663-5980. I would welcome anybody to call me or email me, and I'd be more than happy to talk with them, or at the least point them in the right direction.
Thank you so much for giving us your time today. I know it is extremely tight every day, but you are a delight. You are awesome. And like I said at the beginning, you take a technical and you just bring it down to the very, very real and fun. So thank you so much, Dustin, for being a guest on Grounded.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap on this episode of Grounded. We've covered a lot of ground as we explored what it really takes to run food service behind the scenes. For show notes, highlights, and our latest market insights, visit us at groundedonthepod.com. Grounded is powered by the Buyer's Edge platform, delivering smarter solutions, greater efficiency, and real savings through connected tech, powerful data, and industry expertise. For more information and to get a personal demo of the Buyer's Edge platform, email me at lauren.mitchell@producealliance.com. And if you liked what you heard, subscribe so you don't miss an episode.